In the quiet softness of this night, let your heart begin to settle. Let the weight of the day loosen its grip, like leaves releasing their hold on a gentle autumn breeze. Let every thought slow, every breath deepen, every worry grow faint beneath the calming presence of God, who watches over you with unfailing tenderness. For you are entering a story meant to cradle your spirit, to hush your mind, to draw you into a peace so deep and so steady that sleep becomes a gift you no longer chase, but simply receive. Shower. And as you rest here, wrapped in this moment, I invite you to drift with me into one of the most soothing stories in Scripture, a story filled with quiet trust and nighttime peace, a story God uses again and again to still the restless heart. There was a night long ago when a young shepherd stepped out beneath a sky drenched in stars. The hills around him were calm, the sheep resting in the tender hush of evening, the wind moving like a soft whisper through the grass. This shepherd was young, yet his spirit carried a peace far beyond his years. His name was David, and even before he became a king, he had learned the secret that many spend a lifetime trying to find: the secret of resting in God, truly resting, deeply resting. Resting not because life was simple or easy, but because he knew that every breath he took was held by the one who never sleeps. Imagine him there, a small flicker of fire glowing beside him, the warmth touching his face, his hands folded loosely around his staff, his eyes gently closing as he listened to the sounds of the night, the soft bleating of sheep, the distant rustle of small creatures in the brush, the rhythmic pulse of creation breathing around him. There was danger in those hills, yes, lions, bears, thieves, uncertainties that in any other heart might stir worry or wakefulness. But in David, there was calm, there was trust, there was that quiet knowledge that God himself was near, guarding, watching, surrounding him like an invisible wall of peace. And as he drifted into sleep, he whispered prayers that rose like incense into the starlit sky. Prayers of thanks, prayers of surrender, prayers that carried no fear, only a gentle yielding. You are my shepherd. You lead me beside still waters. You restore my soul. Words he would later weave into the psalm that has lulled countless weary hearts into rest across the centuries, perhaps even yours tonight. For Psalm 23 is not simply a poem. It is the echo of a young shepherd's nighttime trust, a lullaby sung by someone who learned to lie down and sleep in perfect safety, because he knew the Lord held every moment. David did not force sleep to come. He did not chase it. He simply gave himself to God, and sleep followed, like a child curling into the arms of a loving parent. And maybe tonight your mind has been busy, wandering down familiar paths of worry. Maybe sleep has felt far away, like a door that won't quite open no matter how gently you try. But hear this softly: God is here, closer than your breath, nearer than your thoughts, guarding you the way he guarded David, and he invites you now to lay down your own anxious striving, to rest your head in peace, to surrender this night into his hands, for he loves you more deeply than you can measure, and he delights in giving rest to the ones he calls his own. So breathe slowly, let your shoulders sink a little more, let your heartbeat settle into a quiet rhythm, and allow this story to wash over you like warm light, like a soothing stream, like the gentle presence of God drawing near. For you are safe, you are held, you are not alone in this night. And sleep will come, just as it came for David on that peaceful hillside long ago. The night deepens around you now, soft and unhurried, Like a blanket the Lord Himself is placing over your shoulders. And as we return to the gentle hills where David once kept watch, let your spirit slip a little further into rest. For this story is meant to cradle you, to breathe peace into the places where tension still lingers, to speak softly to the tired corners of your heart until they melt into stillness. David would often look up at the sky and feel the nearness of God in every star. Each small, bright flicker reminded him that even in darkness, light was not absent. Even in silence, God was speaking. Even in the long watches of the night, when all the world seemed asleep, but danger wandered the edges of the field, he was never truly alone. And perhaps you too have known nights that felt long and uncertain. Nights when your thoughts circled the same worries. Nights when your heart beat a little too fast. Nights when the quiet felt heavy instead of comforting. But God has walked with His children through nights far darker than these, and He has never lost a single one. Not David, not the generations who whispered Psalm 23 to calm their trembling souls, and not you, not tonight, not ever. Sometimes David would rise to check on his flock, moving slowly so as not to stir the sleeping sheep. He would pause beside them, watching their breaths rise and fall with perfect peace. They were not afraid because they trusted Him. They knew His voice. They knew His protection. They knew that if any danger approached, He would stand between them and harm. And perhaps you long for that same assurance, to be able to rest without scanning the horizon for what might go wrong, to close your eyes without rehearsing every tomorrow that hasn't arrived, to lie down without carrying the weight of every unspoken fear. And this is exactly why God calls Himself your shepherd, not a distant guardian, not a silent watcher, but a shepherd who stays close, a shepherd who sees you, a shepherd who leads you gently into rest. David learned something holy in those quiet hours. He learned that peace does not depend on circumstances. Peace depends on presence, the presence of God, the one who does not sleep, so you can, the one who keeps watch, so you can relax your grip on the things that trouble you, the one who whispers, "You are safe, you are mine. Close your eyes, beloved. I am here." And when you believe that voice, really believe it, something in your chest loosens. Something unclenches. Something softens. And sleep begins to drift toward you like a warm tide. There were nights when David sang softly to the sheep, not loud songs, not triumphant melodies, gentle ones, quiet and slow, like prayers set to music. And sometimes he would stop singing and simply listen to the wind brushing over the grass, to the distant hum of the earth settling beneath him, to the deep, steady heartbeat of creation reminding him that God holds all things together, even the things David didn't understand, even the things he feared, even the things he could not control. And in that listening, David found rest. He found a peace that wrapped around him like a cloak, and it lulled him into slumber without effort or struggle. You might be listening tonight too, listening not just with your ears, but with your heart, listening for a word from God, listening for relief from the weight you've been carrying, listening for some sign that He sees you in your weariness. And the gentle truth is this: He does. He has always seen you. He has watched every moment you felt alone, every evening you lay awake hoping sleep would finally come, every tear that slipped quietly down your cheek when no one else was there to notice. None of it has escaped Him. And He is here now, leaning close, inviting your soul to rest the way David rested, not because everything is perfect, but because you are perfectly held. So let your breathing grow slower. Let your thoughts drift like clouds passing across a moonlit sky, not clinging, not circling, only drifting. Let the tension in your forehead, your jaw, your shoulders soften gradually, like ice melting under warm sunlight. Feel the gentleness of God settling over you, soothing you, surrounding you, drawing you into the kind of calm that cannot be forced or manufactured. The kind of calm that comes only from knowing you are safe in the presence of the one who loves you beyond measure. And as you rest here, remember the shepherd boy who lay under the same sky you sleep beneath tonight. The God who comforted him is comforting you. The God who stilled his heart is stilling yours. The God who gave him rest will give you rest as well, for he has not changed. His tenderness has not faded. His love has not weakened. And his desire to give you peace is just as strong in this moment as it was on that quiet hillside thousands of years ago. So, the night around David grew deeper, settling into that velvety stillness where the world seems to exhale, a quiet so full and gentle that even the smallest sounds felt sacred. The soft shifting of a lamb against the grass, the faint brush of wind drifting across the hillside, the whisper of leaves trembling under starlight. And in that tender hush, David often felt something more than silence. He felt God, not far above him in the heavens, not distant or unreachable, but near, so near that his presence seemed to wrap around David's shoulders like a warm covering, easing his thoughts, slowing his pulse, drawing him into a peace that did not depend on anything except trust. There were nights when David whispered to God as though speaking to a close friend sitting right beside him. He talked about his fears, the dangers he faced, the future he didn't yet understand. And with every word he released, a little more of the weight inside him lifted. He learned that God listens most tenderly in the quiet hours when the world has gone still and the heart is finally soft enough to be honest. And maybe tonight you too are in one of those quiet places. Maybe you're whispering things inside your mind that you've been carrying far too long. Maybe this is the moment when your spirit begins to loosen its grip and let God hold what you no longer can. For he welcomes your tiredness, your questions, your worries, your wandering thoughts. None of them are too heavy for him. None of them disrupt his peace. David often looked over his flock and felt a gentle ache of love for them. They didn't know how much danger he kept away from them, how many times he stood awake while they rested, how many threats he faced without allowing fear to touch them. And as he watched their peaceful sleep, he realized that God watched him the same way, guarding him from things he never even saw, protecting him from dangers he never knew approached, holding back shadows he never had to face. And that truth became a quiet anchor in his soul, the kind of truth that allows a weary heart to finally unclench and rest. Perhaps you don't realize how much God has shielded you from too, the unseen mercies, the silent protections, the subtle whispers that redirected your steps when trouble lurked unnoticed. Sometimes the greatest peace comes not from knowing what God is doing, but from knowing that he is doing something, always, faithfully, quietly, lovingly. And because he is, you can rest. You can close your eyes without the fear of what you might miss. You can breathe deeply without feeling the need to hold the world together on your own. You can surrender this moment into his hands the way David did, trusting that those hands are steady and sure. As the night stretched on, David felt the coolness of the earth beneath him, grounding him, calming him. He listened to the rhythm of creation around him, each sound like a soft reminder that God's order remained unbroken. The stars kept their places, the wind kept its path, the earth kept its turning. and all of it spoke the same quiet message. God is constant. God is present. God is here. And in that constancy, David found rest, not because his life was simple, but because God was steady, unchanging, tender in his watchfulness. Your own heart might settle the same way now, as if the world around you is gently reminding you that God has not changed. His strength has not weakened. His care has not diminished. He is the same God who comforted David under that starry sky, and he is with you in this moment, drawing near to soothe the places where your soul feels worn. Let the calm of this night wrap around you. Let the hush of God's presence sink deeper into your spirit. Let the gentle awareness that you are seen and loved soften every thought that still tries to pull you away from rest. And as David breathed in the cool air of the hillside, his heart began to drift towards sleep. Not abruptly, not forcefully, but naturally, like a leaf settling on still water, like a child leaning into a loving embrace. And that same quiet drift can come for you now. Slowly, softly, steadily, as you rest in the truth that God is holding you just as tenderly as he held David, guiding you into peace, watching over your sleep and surrounding you with a love that does not fade with the setting sun.
The night around David seemed to breathe with him, rising and falling in a rhythm so gentle it felt almost like the heartbeat of God himself. And as the moon traced its pale path across the sky, David lay stretched upon the quiet earth, feeling the softness of grass beneath his palms, feeling the tender stillness wrapping around him like a cloak woven from peace itself. And slowly, without rush, his thoughts softened, drifting like small lanterns floating on a calm river, one by one growing dimmer, quieter, lighter, until only the steady warmth of God's presence remained. There were moments on those hillsides when David let his mind wander back over the events of the day, not with worry or tension, but with a gentle kind of gratitude. He would remember how the morning sun had rested on the backs of his sheep, how the breeze had cooled his face when the noon heat arrived, how the Lord had guided him to fresh grass and sparkling streams. Every detail, no matter how small, became a reminder of God's steady hand. And when he reflected this way, even the difficult moments took on a different light, because he knew he had not walked through them alone. And perhaps you've had days like that too, days that held both calm and challenge, comfort and strain, quiet moments and heavy ones. But here, in this tender hour, you don't need to solve the day or untangle anything inside it. You can simply lay it before God, the way David did, gently, loosely, trustingly. David often whispered, "You restore my soul." Not loudly, not as a shout of triumph, but as a soft confession. A truth he spoke into the quiet so his heart would remember. And maybe your soul, too, needs restoring. Maybe it has been stretched thin by worry or the weight of expectations. Maybe it has grown tired from holding too much, feeling too much, striving too hard. But God specializes in restoration. Not the hurried kind, not the pressured kind, not the kind that demands perfection before peace, but the slow, tender, steady restoration that seeps into the heart like warm light, comforting, soothing, healing. On nights when the air grew colder, David would pull his cloak closer and feel the simple comfort of its warmth, and he would remember that God covered him the same way, not with fabric, but with presence, with love, with protection. And perhaps tonight you can feel that covering too, not physically, but in your spirit, like something soft is settling over you, like God himself is tucking you into a place of safety, smoothing the fears from your thoughts, quieting the restlessness inside your chest, whispering, "You can rest now.
I'm watching. I'm near. And when that truth becomes real in the deepest places of the heart, sleep no longer feels distant. It feels natural, like water flowing toward the sea, like dusk giving way to night. Inevitable, gentle, peaceful. The sheep around David rested without worry, without tension, without planning the next day. They simply lay down and surrendered to the peace of their shepherd's presence. And Jesus, the Good Shepherd, invites you to rest the same way, not by earning peace, not by fixing everything first, not by trying harder to sleep, but by trusting the one who watches over you, the one who neither slumbers nor grows weary, the one who holds you close even when you feel far from calm. And in that trust, rest begins to bloom inside you like a quiet miracle. And so David's breathing grew slow, steady, deep. Each inhale a reminder of God's mercy, each exhale a release of the burdens he could not carry on his own. And perhaps your breathing can follow that same gentle pattern now. Let each inhale fill you with calm. Let each exhale loosen what has clung too tightly to your thoughts. Let the rhythm become a prayer without words, a quiet offering of trust, a surrender into the hands of the one who loves you more than you can measure. As the stars drifted across the sky, David finally closed his eyes, not out of exhaustion or desperation, but out of trust. Pure, simple, heartfelt trust. And that trust carried him into restful sleep, the kind of sleep that restores deeper than any words can describe, the kind of sleep God longs to give you now, a sleep wrapped in his presence, guarded by his love, surrounded by his peace, a sleep that feels like being held. And as this story continues to settle around you like a soft blanket, let your own heart sink gently into rest. For God is here, He is close, and He is ready to soothe you into the peaceful sleep your soul has been longing for. The night around David softened even further, becoming almost weightless, as if every sound, every shadow, every movement in creation had agreed to rest with him. The breeze grew slower, cooler, gentler, brushing over his skin like a whispered blessing. And the moon lowered toward the horizon in a steady arc, bathing the hillside in a pale glow that felt almost like the quiet smile of God. And David, lying upon the tender earth, felt his soul drifting into that slow, sacred calm, where thoughts no longer press or push, where worries dissolve like mist, where the presence of God becomes the only thing left in the mind. Sometimes David would recall the moments in his life when God's nearness had become undeniable, moments when danger had been close, when fear had tried to rise, when uncertainty had whispered its threats. Yet each time, God had strengthened him, held him, guided him, and remembering those things in the stillness of night gave him a deep and quiet confidence, not a loud confidence, not a bold shout of faith, but the soft, steady kind that settles deep in the bones, the kind that whispers, God has carried me before, He will carry me again, even now. And perhaps that same remembering can settle into your heart too. Think of the times God has brought you through, the prayers He has answered, the comfort He has given you in moments you thought you'd break, the quiet strength that rose within you when you least expected it. All those moments are reminders, gentle, holy reminders, that He has never left you, and He is not leaving you now. The peace David felt did not come because life was simple. No, his life was filled with battles, responsibilities, hopes, uncertainties, and dangers. Yet in the quiet of the night, all those things faded into the background, overshadowed by the calming truth that God was near. And this is what makes David's rest so powerful. He rested not because everything was easy, but because he trusted the one who watched over him. And tonight, that same invitation is stretched out before you. The invitation to rest because God is near, to let go because you are held, to breathe deeply because nothing in this night is beyond his loving care. Sometimes David would stretch his hand out toward the sky, feeling the cool air slip through his fingers, and he would whisper a simple prayer. Not long, not complicated, just a small offering of trust. Maybe something like, "You are here, and I am yours." And that was enough. Enough to steady his heart, enough to drift him towards sleep, enough to remind him that he was not alone even for a moment. And perhaps you can whisper something simple too, not out loud if you don't wish to, even in your mind, in the quiet spaces inside you, something gentle like, "Lord, I trust you. Lord, I rest in you." Those soft words become like anchors. They steady the spirit, they slow the pulse, they calm the wandering mind, they draw you nearer to the one whose presence nurtures rest. The sheep around David continued sleeping peacefully, unaware of how deeply their shepherd cared for them, unaware of how closely he watched, unaware of the dangers he had already pushed back, unaware of the mercy that covered them in every moment. And yet they rested, simply, naturally, fully. And oh, how God longs for you to experience that kind of rest, not because you understand everything, not because your life is perfect, not because your problems have vanished, but because you trust the one who holds you, the one who shields you from far more than you ever see, the one who stands guard over your life with unwavering love. As the hours passed, David's thoughts grew softer, slower, fewer, each one fading like a star disappearing at dawn. And in that fading, he felt an even deeper peace, a peace that came not from trying to sleep, but from yielding to God's tender presence. And maybe that is the shift your heart is feeling now, a gradual loosening, a softening, a sense that sleep is no longer something far away, but something drawing near, something gentle, something comforting, something God himself is guiding you toward. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to hurry. You do not need to perfect your breathing or clear your mind. You only need to rest in God. Just rest, the way David rested, the way the sheep rested, the way creation rests every night under the faithful watch of the one who made it. And as you rest, God will cradle you in a peace that reaches deeper than you can see, deeper than you can feel, deeper than you can understand. The sky above David began to shift, stars trembling slightly as the earliest hints of dawn gathered at the horizon. But still, the night remained quiet, peaceful, slow. And David, wrapped in God's presence, drifted fully into sleep, safe, guarded, cherished. And tonight, that same sleep is reaching for you, inviting you, welcoming you, to surrender into the loving arms of the God who never sleeps. The horizon behind David softened into deeper blue, yet the night still held its gentle hush, a quiet so deep and calming that even time itself seemed to slow. And David, wrapped in the nearness of God, lay in a peace that reached far beyond understanding, his body heavy with rest, his spirit light with trust, and all around him the sheep slept without fear, their small forms rising and falling with soft, steady breaths, each one safe beneath the watchful care of the shepherd who loved them. But even more profoundly, beneath the care of the God who loved David, the God who loves you just as tenderly in this very moment. There were moments
Even in his half-sleep, when David felt the gentle presence of God like a warm hand resting over his heart, a presence that asked nothing of him, demanded nothing, required nothing, only offered peace, only whispered comfort. And when that presence settled over him, his mind loosened completely, releasing the last remnants of worry, letting go of tomorrow, letting go of the unknown, resting fully in the one who had already written every one of his days with love. And perhaps your heart is beginning to feel that same soft releasing now, a gentle unwinding, as if God himself is smoothing out the tightness from your thoughts, slipping his peace into the spaces where fear once lived. David knew that even in the darkest hours, God was not far, not distant, not silent, but close enough to hear the faintest whisper of his soul, close enough to steady him when uncertainty tried to rise, close enough to lull him into sleep with nothing more than his presence. And that truth breathed rest into him until his spirit felt light as air. And maybe that truth is drifting into your heart too, whispering that God has not gone anywhere, that he is closer now than you felt in days, that he is watching over you with the same tender devotion he showed to David beneath those ancient stars. The earth beneath David grew warm where his body rested, the grass cradling him like a natural bedding fashioned by the hands of the Creator. And above him, the stars shimmered in soft patterns, each one a reminder that the same God who named them also knows the quiet needs of your heart. And as David surrendered fully to sleep, he did so knowing that nothing in the night, not a sound, not a shadow, not a whisper of wind, could touch him outside of God's loving awareness. And that truth allowed his whole being to let go, to rest, to drift into the deep, restoring sleep that God longs to give his children. And maybe you can feel that drift beginning now, subtle, quiet, as if something inside you is finally exhaling after holding on for far too long, as if God is placing his peace like a soft blanket over your shoulders, as if the night itself is leaning in to soothe you. For this is holy rest, the kind that comes when the soul remembers who holds it, who guards it, who loves it beyond measure. The sky stretched wide and deep around David, and in that vastness he felt small, but in the most comforting way. Small enough to be held, small enough to be guided, small enough to be cherished. And sometimes feeling small in God's presence is the very thing that brings the greatest peace, because it reminds us that we do not have to carry the world. We do not have to carry ourselves. We only need to rest in the arms of the one who carries all things. And so, with the night embracing him, with God watching over him, with peace surrounding him like soft air, David slept, deeply, soundly, beautifully. The kind of sleep that renews the soul and quiets the mind. And that same rest is drawing near to you now, like a gentle tide, like a whisper of love, like God himself leaning close to tell you, you are safe, you are held. Rest now, beloved, rest. The night deepened into a velvet stillness around David, yet even as the hours stretched on, nothing within him stirred with worry, nothing rose to trouble his spirit. For the presence of God lay over him like a soft mantle, warming the places inside him that had known fear, easing the corners of his mind that had once felt strained, and filling him with a peace so complete it felt like drifting on gentle water. And in that deep hush, David's soul rested without effort, without resistance, without the restless circling of thoughts that so often trouble a weary heart. He simply lay there, breathing in God's nearness, breathing out the remnants of the day, settling deeper into trust with each slow exhale. Far across the hillside,
The faintest rustle of wind moved through the brush, but it did not rouse him, for even the sounds of the night felt softened by God's hand, as though every movement in creation was part of a calming lullaby prepared just for him, a tender reminder that nothing in the darkness could startle the one who watched over him. Nothing could slip past the shepherd of his soul, and knowing that allowed David to surrender more fully, to let himself sink into that deep, restoring quiet where thoughts dissolve like mist and the heart drifts gently, safely into the arms of God. Sometimes, even in sleep, David's spirit stirred with small memories of God's faithfulness. The way the Lord had strengthened his hands when he faced the lion, the way God had steadied his courage when he protected the flock, the way the Lord had whispered peace into his fears when he felt too young, too small, too fragile to carry the burdens before him. And each memory became a soft glow in the darkness, like lanterns drifting through his dreams, calming him, soothing him, reminding him that the God who had helped him then would help him always. And perhaps, in this quiet moment, your own heart is remembering too, without strain, without effort, just a gentle recollection of how God has carried you through nights that felt heavy, days that felt long, moments when you didn't know how you would continue, yet somehow you did, because He held you, strengthened you, loved you. David's sleep was deep and unbroken, not because life was easy, but because trust had seeped so far into his bones that even in unconsciousness he rested in God. And maybe that is the kind of rest your spirit is moving toward now. A rest that does not depend on perfect circumstances or the absence of questions. A rest that flows instead from being held, truly held, by the one who watches over you with unchanging tenderness, the one who calls you beloved, the one who wraps your tired soul in peace. The night sky above David shimmered with ancient light, stars trembling gently in their places like tiny reflections of God's promises. And though his eyes were closed, though sleep had wrapped him in its soft embrace, his soul still basked in that truth. The truth that God's faithfulness does not fade with the setting sun, that His protection does not weaken in the darkness, that His love does not slumber even when His children do. And your heart may feel those same truths settling now, slowly and quietly, like warm oil flowing into the weary spaces of your mind, loosening your thoughts, softening your breath, dimming the noise of the world around you. David's body, warmed by the earth beneath him, rested in perfect surrender, every muscle at ease, every worry long dissolved, every part of him held in the gentle, watchful care of God. And your own body may be easing into that same rhythm now, your shoulders releasing, your chest loosening, your heartbeat slowing into a steady whisper, as if God Himself is calming you with every breath you take. And in the quiet, unseen realms of the Spirit, God was guarding David, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet strength of perfect love, surrounding him on every side, watching over his dreams, ensuring his rest remained deep and untouched. And that same divine watchfulness is wrapped around you now, soft, steady, tender, a shield you cannot see but can feel if you listen with your heart, a protection that invites you to release every last thread of tension, to sink deeper into peace, to yield fully to the rest God has prepared for you. So as the night rests over you like a calm ocean, as God's presence draws near with gentle warmth, let your spirit drift the way David's did, slowly, peacefully, trustingly, letting go of what lies behind you, releasing what waits ahead, resting only in the truth that you are safe, deeply safe, in the hands of the one who loves you beyond measure,
The night around David seemed to gather itself into a deeper, more sacred stillness, a quiet so complete and gentle that even the smallest shift of air felt like a breath from the heart of God. And as David slept, wrapped in the soft warmth of the earth and the steady watchfulness of heaven, his spirit drifted through peaceful depths that only trust can open. The kind of rest that asks nothing of you, the kind that comes only when the soul releases its grip on everything it was never meant to hold. And in that holy surrender, David experienced a peace far larger than himself, a peace carried by the one who never sleeps, the one who keeps watch when all creation closes its eyes. Across the hillside, the first hints of dawn were still hours away, yet the night remained tender, unbroken, nurturing. The sheep lay curled together in clusters of quiet warmth, breathing in harmony with the rhythm of the land. And though their slumber was simple, unaware, instinctual, it mirrored something far greater, the rest God longed to give his children, the rest that doesn't depend on understanding, but on trust, the rest that comes from knowing you are safe, not because the world is calm, but because God's hand never leaves you. Even in sleep, David's heart seemed to sense the presence enveloping him, that soft, sacred nearness of the Lord who had carried him from youth, whose voice had guided him as gently as still waters, whose love had followed him not only in daylight but in darkness, not only when he was strong, but when he felt small, tired, uncertain. And in that nearness, David found the kind of rest that heals unseen wounds, the kind of rest that soothes the mind and restores the soul, the kind of rest your own heart has been longing for without words. Perhaps you can feel that same presence beginning to settle over you now, like a warm, invisible blanket pulled gently up beneath your chin, like a tender hand smoothing the tension from your forehead, like a soft whisper easing into the quiet corners of your spirit saying, "You're safe now. You can rest. I am here." And as those words sink gently into your being, maybe you notice your breath slowing, your body softening, your thoughts drifting like quiet streams away from the edges of worry, because the one who watches over you is the same one who watched over David, the same one who has watched over you through every night of your life, even the ones you could not rest through. The earth beneath David hummed with a faint, steady warmth, as though creation itself was cradling him. And perhaps right now, beneath your own weight, the bed is holding you in that same gentle way, not demanding anything, not rushing you, simply supporting you as you ease into God's peace. And as your body grows still, your soul begins to understand something tender, that rest is not something you achieve, it is something you receive, something God gives, like a gift, freely, lovingly, patiently. And as David slept, God surrounded him with a protection deeper than any human guard could offer. No enemy could approach unseen, no danger could slip past the watchful gaze of the one who formed the stars shining above. And that same divine protection surrounds you now, even if you cannot see it, even if you cannot feel it completely. It is there, steady, unshakable, faithful. And knowing that allows your heart to loosen its last threads of worry, to stop clinging to the thoughts that tire you, to drift gently, slowly, peacefully toward rest. So as the quiet night settles around you like a calm sea, as God's presence draws near with warmth and tenderness, let your spirit drift the way David's did, without fear, without pressure, without trying, simply letting go, letting your breath soften, letting your heart rest, letting God hold all the things you no longer need to carry. And as you do, sleep will come to you not as an achievement, but as a blessing, a gentle gift from the one who loves you endlessly. The night around David drifted into an even deeper calm, a hush so complete that it felt as though the whole world had paused just to let him rest. And though the hours passed without measure, nothing disturbed him. Not the soft rustling of grass, not the distant settling of the earth, not even the faint movements of sheep shifting into more comfortable positions. Everything seemed to move in quiet agreement with the peace God had placed over him, a peace so gentle, so steady, that his spirit floated in it like a leaf upon still waters. And within that sacred quiet, David's breathing remained slow and rhythmic, each rise and fall of his chest reflecting the tender faithfulness of the God who watched over him. In the depths of his sleep, David's mind drifted through memories softened by time and touched by heaven. He remembered the first time he had truly understood God's nearness, how, as a young boy, he had stood beneath the sky and felt something warm and strong settle in his chest, something like a promise whispered without words. And now, years later, that same warmth wrapped around him with even greater tenderness, a reminder that God's presence does not fade as life becomes more complex. It grows, it deepens, it becomes an anchor that steadies the heart in ways nothing else can. And perhaps your spirit feels that anchor beginning to settle now, gently, quietly, pulling you toward rest rather than thought, toward calm rather than strain. Even in his dreams, David felt surrounded by the gentle assurance that he was loved, deeply, wholly, unconditionally, not for what he could accomplish, not for how bravely he could fight, not for how faithfully he could lead, but simply because he was God's, a shepherd's son, cradled in the care of the great shepherd. And you too are held in that same love, a love that has followed you through every season, every valley, every night when sleep felt distant, a love that is drawing you now into a deeper quiet, smoothing the thoughts that keep circling, dimming the worries that try to linger, whispering softly that you don't have to hold anything together. God is holding you. As David slept, the gentle darkness wrapped around him like a soft embrace, peaceful, unthreatening, comforting. Nothing within it carried fear, because God was within the darkness too, turning it into a sanctuary rather than a place of uncertainty. And perhaps that truth can settle into you now, that the night is not a place where God is absent. It is a place where his presence becomes even more tender, more intimate, more real. For when the world grows quiet, the heart hears him more clearly. And he is whispering over you now, drawing you into rest with a kindness that never rushes, never forces, never pressures, only invites. The ground beneath David warmed slightly from where he rested, and the earth seemed to cradle him with gentle familiarity, as though God himself had shaped the place for his peace. The softness of the grass, the curve of the hillside, the shelter of the night sky, all worked together to surround him with calm. And maybe, in your own way, your body is beginning to feel that same ease, the mattress supporting you, your limbs growing heavier, your breath deepening, each moment pulling you closer to that quiet surrender where sleep becomes effortless, natural, God-given. Even the air around David carried a peaceful rhythm, cool and steady, brushing lightly against his skin like a soothing hand. And through that breath of wind came a quiet assurance, one that seeped into his dreams like a warm current. You are safe. You are watched over. You are mine. And perhaps even now, the Spirit is whispering something just as gentle to you, easing into the corners of your heart that still feel alert.
reassuring you that nothing can reach you outside of God's loving awareness. Nothing can disturb the rest He offers you. Nothing can take you from His care. David's sleep grew deeper still, the kind of sleep that comes not from exhaustion, but from surrender, from releasing everything into the hands of a faithful God, from trusting so completely that the body finally lets go and allows peace to flow like soft water through every tired place, and your heart may be drifting toward that same release, slowly, sweetly, quietly, as each breath draws you deeper into God's arms, as each moment of stillness reminds you that you are not responsible for keeping your world in motion tonight. God is, and He is doing it gladly, faithfully, perfectly. So allow the night to wrap around you like gentle wings. Allow your mind to dim its thoughts until only soft echoes remain. Allow your heart to settle into the truth that you are loved, guarded, and deeply cared for. And as the story of David's rest continues to flow around you like calming water, let your own spirit follow its rhythm, drifting, sinking, settling into the peaceful sleep God is preparing for you, a sleep that restores, a sleep that heals.
The night over, David flowed onward in its gentle, unbroken stillness, a softness so deep that it seemed to settle not only over the hills and the sheep, but into the very breath of the earth itself. And as he slept, his spirit rested in a peace that only God can give, a peace that drifts beneath thought, beneath memory, beneath even the quiet pulse of dreams, a peace that wraps the soul in warmth and whispers, "You are mine. You are safe. Rest now." And in that whisper, David's entire being melted into a deeper calm, a calm untouched by fear or uncertainty. Around him, the hillside glowed faintly beneath the scattered shimmer of starlight, each star flickering with ancient constancy, as if singing in silent harmony with the rest that held him. The shadows lay soft across the grass, gentle and unthreatening, like dark folds in God's great cloak spread over the earth, and the air carried a coolness that soothed rather than startled, brushing over David's face the way a parent smooths the hair of a sleeping child, tenderly, protectively, lovingly. Even within sleep, David's soul knew that the Lord was near, not as a distant echo, not as a far-off hope, but as a warm presence wrapped close around him, steady as breath, firm as the earth beneath him, comforting as the quiet lull of night. And sometimes, even in dreaming, he felt faint glimpses of God's goodness flowing through him like soft waves, reminders of past mercies, hints of future grace, a sense of being held in hands far greater than his own. Perhaps your heart too is beginning to sense that same sweetness now, the slow unwinding of worry, the dimming of thought, the gentle loosening of the muscles around your eyes, your jaw, your shoulders, as if God is moving through your rest the way He moved through David's, calming the places that feel strained, resting the places that feel tired, whispering peace into the spaces that still hold remnants of the day. The sheep remain settled in their quiet clusters, their small frames warm against one another, each one radiating trust without knowing it. And in their simplicity, they reflected something profound, that rest does not require understanding, only surrender. And David, even in his slumber, lived that surrender deeply. He rested not because the world was free of danger, but because he trusted the one who watched over him, the one who saw every unseen threat, the one who never grew weary, never drifted, never failed. And that same trust is stretching gently toward you now,
not as a demand, not as a command, but as an invitation, a soft calling to let go of vigilance, to release the grip your mind keeps on the things you cannot control, to breathe into the safety that God is offering you in this very moment, a safety woven from love, steadiness, and unfailing faithfulness. As David slept, the earth seemed to cradle him with a warmth that seeped through the layers of his clothing, easing the tension from his muscles. His body softened into the ground, heavy and relaxed, as though everything inside him had finally found a place to settle. And perhaps your own body is beginning to feel something similar, sinking deeper into the mattress, limbs growing heavier, thoughts drifting slower, a soft, quiet blooming behind your eyes, the first hints of deep sleep approaching like a calm tide. God watched over David with a tenderness that required no sound, no movement, no effort, a silent, powerful protection that wrapped around him like a shield woven of light and love. And that same protection surrounds you now, gentle yet strong, steady yet soft, guarding not only your sleep, but your heart, your mind, your spirit, holding you in a peace that reaches beyond understanding. The hours drifted by in their soft procession, but David remained untouched by wakefulness. The night seemed built for his rest, designed by the Creator to soothe every part of him. And you too are resting in a night God has shaped around you, a night that carries His peace, His warmth, His presence. And as you breathe in this calm, as you sink a little deeper into stillness, sleep draws nearer, slow and sweet, ready to cradle you just as tenderly as it cradled David beneath those ancient stars. So allow yourself to drift now. Let your thoughts soften. Let your breath lengthen. Let God's nearness wrap around you like soft light. And as your spirit follows the gentle rhythm of this story, let it settle fully into the rest He has prepared for you. Peaceful, deep, restoring, a rest woven from His endless love.
The night stretched on in its deep and sacred quiet, a quiet so gentle, so faithful, that it felt as though God Himself had cupped His hands around the hillside, sheltering every creature in a calm beyond anything the world could offer. And David, wrapped in that holy stillness, lay resting in the soft cradle of peace that only the Lord can weave. His breathing steady and slow, his body warm against the tender earth, his spirit drifting in a place where fear could not follow, where worry had no voice, where the presence of God filled every shadow with comfort. There was a sweetness to that rest, the kind that sinks deeper with every heartbeat, the kind that softens the spaces within the soul that have been stretched or worn. And even as David slept, something within him seemed to glow softly with the memory of God's goodness. Tiny sparks of gratitude drifting through the quiet of his dreams. Gratitude for the breath in his lungs, for the flock entrusted to his care, for the peace that held him close, for the love that had followed him all the days of his life, long before he ever spoke the words that would later become a psalm whispered across generations. The night winds tenderly brushed the tops of the grass, moving so softly that it seemed almost like a lullaby breathed by creation itself. The hush of it eased through the hillside with slow grace, stirring nothing except a deeper sense of calm. And as the wind passed over David's resting form, it carried with it the faint impression of God's voice. Not loud, not distinct, but felt, sensed, known. A whisper of assurance woven into the air, a promise that nothing could touch him outside of divine love. Nothing could disturb the rest God had wrapped around him. Perhaps you can feel something of that whisper now, a quiet assurance drifting through your own thoughts, loosening the last pieces of tension from your chest,
softening the stillness around you, inviting you to settle even more deeply into the rest God is offering you. For the same God who steadied David beneath the ancient stars is drawing near to steady you now. The same God who guarded that sleeping shepherd is guarding your tender heart in this very moment, watching over you with a nearness that needs no sound to be real. The sheep remain still, their breaths rising and falling in gentle unison, each one unconcerned with the world beyond the immediate comfort of their shepherd's presence. And in their peaceful sleep, they unknowingly reflected a divine truth, that rest does not come from knowing every answer, or from solving every tomorrow, or from carrying everything alone. Rest comes from trusting the one who watches over you, who stands between you and the shadows, who shelters you even when you are unaware of it. David's dreams drifted like soft currents through a quiet river, unhurried, unburdened, and though his mind wandered through scenes and memories, each one seemed touched by light, softened by God's hand, transformed into something calm and harmless in the warmth of divine nearness. And your own thoughts may be beginning to move in that same gentle way, drifting without urgency, without weight, without sharpness, as if God is smoothing them into peaceful shapes, guiding them towards stillness, settling them in the soft glow of his comfort. The ground beneath David held him with a natural tenderness, as though creation itself understood the sacredness of the moment. And perhaps your own body is beginning to feel that same support now. The subtle embrace of the mattress beneath you, the quiet heaviness in your limbs, the warmth pooling gently in your hands, your legs, your chest, each sensation a reminder that you are allowed to rest, that you are safe to let go, that you are free to drift into the sleep your soul has longed for. The stars overhead shimmered like tiny wells of peace poured into the sky by the Creator, each one a reminder that God's light remains even in the deepest night. And though David slept with his eyes closed, his spirit sensed that light, the warmth of it, the certainty of it, the promise that God's watchfulness does not grow dim with the darkness, does not fade with time, does not step back even for a moment. For God is near, nearer than any fear, nearer than any shadow, nearer than any restless thought that still tries to rise. And as you rest beneath his watchful care, your heart can begin to release the last bits of effort, the last threads of vigilance, the last remnants of the day, letting each one fall gently into his hands, the same hands that guarded David, the same hands that guard you now. So allow yourself to drift a little deeper. Let your breath grow softer. Let the weight of God's peace settle over you like warm light, and let your spirit sink into the quiet certainty that you are safe, you are held, and you are deeply loved, just as David was, just as you are. The night around, David deepened into a tender stillness so complete that it felt as though the very air had paused to honor the peace God had poured over him, a peace that wrapped itself around every breath, every heartbeat, every quiet dream drifting through his resting spirit. And in that sacred softness, David remained utterly untouched by fear, untouched by the weight of tomorrow, untouched even by the memories of burdens he once carried while awake. For God had drawn near, closer than breath, closer than thought, closer than the gentle rise and fall of his sleeping chest. The hillside glowed faintly beneath the soft shimmer of starlight, each tiny spark hanging silently above him like a blessing suspended in the heavens. The sky itself seemed to lean low, curving over him like a great sheltering wing, steady and calm. And within that holy canopy, David's sleep flowed deeper, becoming something more than rest. It became communion, a quiet meeting between his weary soul and the heart of God, No words needed, no effort required, only surrender, only trust, only the sweet yielding of a child resting in the arms of the one who loves him. All around him, the sheep lay settled in their small, warm clusters, their breaths synchronized in a gentle rhythm that spread outward in waves of calm. They were unaware of the dangers that lurked beyond the edges of the night, unaware of how completely they depended on their shepherd's vigilance, unaware of how many times David had stood between them and harm, and yet they slept with perfect ease, perfect surrender, perfect trust. And in their peaceful stillness, they unknowingly revealed a truth that echoes even now, that true rest does not come from awareness or understanding. It comes from knowing you are protected, knowing you are watched over, knowing you are loved, and you are loved more deeply, more tenderly, more faithfully than you may realize, loved by the same God who leaned close to David's quiet slumber, loved by the same shepherd who guarded every breath the sheep took, loved by the one who has watched over every moment of your life, even the ones where you felt abandoned or unseen, perhaps especially those moments. For God never withdraws in the night. He never turns away when your mind grows tired. He never loosens his hold when your heart feels weak. Instead, he draws nearer, softer, quieter, offering you the same peace that rested on David beneath the gentle, ancient sky. There is a kind of rest the soul enters when it finally embraces the truth that it does not have to carry everything. And David, even in sleep, lived in that rest. His body heavy with peace, his spirit floating lightly within the warm presence of God. And perhaps you can feel yourself sinking into that rest now, little by little, breath by breath, as the tension in your body melts like snow under gentle sunlight, as the weight in your chest loosens and softens, as your thoughts drift without urgency, without insistence, becoming slow, quiet shapes that dissolve before they fully form. The quiet around David grew deeper still, thick with the warmth of God's nearness. Even the shadows seemed to soften, wrapping themselves around the hillside like folds of a comforting blanket. And in the tender hush of that moment, God kept his silent watch, eyes that never tired, love that never dimmed, strength that never faltered, guarding the life of the shepherd he cherished, guarding the dreams of the one who trusted him, guarding the night that held them both. Perhaps you can sense that same watchfulness around you now, not loud, not forceful, but gentle, steady, present, the kind of presence that needs no sound to be felt, the kind of protection that allows your heart to let go of the burdens it has been clutching, the kind of love that soothes the restless places inside you and whispers softly, "You are safe, you are mine, rest." The earth beneath David held him with a natural tenderness, warm where his body had settled, soft beneath his weight, forming a cradle shaped by the hands of the Creator. And the longer he slept, the deeper that cradle seemed to feel, as though the entire hillside had been designed for no other purpose than to give him rest. And perhaps your own resting place is beginning to feel the same. The pillow beneath your head softening, the blankets warming, the mattress cupping your body in a gentle embrace, reminding you that God has made space for your rest, that He has prepared this moment for you, that He delights in giving you peace. So let your breath soften once more. Let the weight of your limbs grow heavier. Let your thoughts quiet into a distant murmur. And let yourself drift, the way David drifted, into the peaceful sleep God is offering you. A sleep wrapped in love. A sleep guarded by divine strength. A sleep warmed by the presence of the one who has called you his own. The night deepened into a softness so profound that even the quiet seemed to rest, a stillness
woven from God's own breath, settling over the hillside like a tender veil of peace. And David, wrapped in that holy quiet, drifted deeper into rest with every passing moment, his body warm against the gentle curve of the earth, his spirit floating in the calm that only comes when a soul is fully held, fully known, fully loved by the one who never slumbers nor grows weary. The stars above shimmered in their ancient rhythm, each one pulsing with a faint glow that seemed almost alive, as though creation itself were watching over the shepherd boy, keeping silent company with the God who loved him. And though David's eyes were closed, though sleep had wrapped him in its soft embrace, some part of his spirit still felt that light, sensed its tenderness, rested in its quiet assurance. For the heavens declare the glory of God even when we are too tired to lift our gaze, even when we are deep in sleep, even when our minds drift beyond conscious thought. The heavens keep shining, whispering, reminding the soul that God's faithfulness endures in every hour, awake or asleep. The sheep remained nestled in their small clusters, breaths rising and falling in perfect peace, unaware of danger, unaware of the shepherd's vigilance, unaware of the love that encircled them on every side. And their quiet trust became a reflection of something holy, of the way God longs for his children to rest, not by understanding everything, not by predicting tomorrow, not by keeping watch over their own lives, but by leaning fully into his protection, his care, his unfailing nearness. For the soul finds its deepest rest not in control, but in surrender. And as David slept, the Lord's presence hovered over him like a warm, invisible covering, thicker than the cloak around his shoulders, stronger than any wall built by human hands, more tender than any earthly embrace. A presence that did not waver, even for a heartbeat. A presence that guarded his dreams, shielded his spirit, soothed the quiet chambers of his heart. And perhaps you can feel that presence now, drawing softly around you like a blanket of light, settling into the corners of your mind, easing the tension from your breath. For God watches over you the same way he watched over David, lovingly, faithfully, without interruption, without pause. Even now, as you rest beneath the hush of this storytelling night, the Lord is near, closer than your thoughts, closer than your pulse, closer than the quiet rhythm of your breathing. And he is whispering to your heart in ways beyond words, inviting you deeper into the peace he prepared long before this moment arrived. Peace that loosens the tightness around the chest. Peace that softens the furrow between the brows. Peace that trickles gently through the muscles of the body until they melt, slowly, into stillness. The night wind drifted again across the hillside, moving with soft, measured strokes that carried the faint scent of earth and grass. It brushed against David's sleeping form, cooling his skin, soothing his senses, keeping his rest deep and unbroken. And the wind itself seemed to carry God's gentleness, wrapping the shepherd boy in an unspoken lullaby, a melody only the Spirit could hear, a song woven from love, mercy, and quiet protection. And perhaps tonight the Spirit is breathing something similar across your heart, a soft wind of comfort, moving unseen, yet deeply felt, calming the restless places, settling the troubled thoughts, drawing you into a deeper quiet. In the depths of David's sleep, his dreams drifted like slow, peaceful tides, memories softened by grace, hopes touched by light. Even his fears, once sharp, once heavy, seemed to dissolve into faint, harmless silhouettes that held no power in the presence of God. And your own thoughts may be beginning to soften in the same way, their volume lowering,
their presence fading into the background as rest begins to rise gently within you like a quiet dawn in the soul. The earth beneath David did not shift or stir as he slept. It simply held him, strong, steady, unwavering. And perhaps your resting place feels the same now, the mattress steady beneath you, the pillow soft and welcoming, the blankets warming with your body's gentle heat, forming a cradle around you, reminding your body that this moment is safe, this moment is blessed. And in the safety of that cradle, your breath grows even slower, your limbs heavier, your thoughts quieter. So let yourself soften a little more. Let the weight of the day slip quietly from your shoulders. Let your breath settle into the slow rhythm of deepening rest. For you are safe. You are seen. And God's peace is drawing over you like the quiet veil of night, inviting you into the soft, healing sleep your soul has needed for so long. The same sleep he wrapped around David under the tender watch of ancient stars. The night around David deepened into an even gentler softness, a hush so complete that it felt as though the very heartbeat of creation had slowed to match the peaceful rhythm of his breathing. Each inhale a quiet sip of cool night air, each exhale a soft release into the warmth of God's presence. And as he rested, the world around him seemed to fold itself into a deeper stillness, as if honoring the peace that God had woven over him like a tender, invisible blanket. The stars above glimmered with a faint, steady pulse, their ancient light shimmering across the hillside in soft silvers and pale golds. And though David slept with eyes closed, his spirit felt the quiet beauty of that starlit sky, sensed the comfort of its steady glow, sensed the faithfulness reflected in every glimmer. For the stars had watched over countless nights before this one, had shone through storms and through clear skies, through joy and through sorrow. Just as God had watched over David through every season of his young life. And even now, in this moment of deep rest, that same faithfulness wrapped itself around him with quiet delight. A soft breeze drifted through the grass, carrying with it the faint scent of the earth, cool, comforting, familiar. It brushed over David's face, whispering across his skin in slow, soothing waves. And the wind felt different tonight, slower, gentler, almost as though God himself breathed through it. A warm exhale of love and protection, the steady breath of a father watching his child sleep. And as the breeze swayed the grass in gentle motions, it created a soft, rustling sound, a natural lullaby that mingled with the rhythm of the night, easing everything into deeper calm. You might feel that same breeze in your spirit now, that quiet breath of God moving softly through your thoughts, clearing away the last remnants of tension, smoothing the rough edges of the day, warming the places within you that still feel tired or fragile, whispering in its tender, quiet way that you can let go, you can rest, you can sink deeper into the peace that is surrounding you. For the God who calmed David's nights is calming yours too. The sheep, nestled together in small clusters of warmth, barely stirred, their bodies relaxed, their minds peaceful, their breaths soft and unbroken. And in the simplicity of their rest, they mirrored something profound, something God has always intended for his children to experience. The beauty of resting without fear, the sweetness of surrendering without hesitation, the gentle peace of trusting the one who guards them. For sheep do not question the kindness of their shepherd, nor do they fear the stillness of night when he is near. And how gently God longs for you to know that same ease, that same surrender, that same comfort. David's dreams drifted like slow-moving clouds across a tranquil sky, each one light, gentle, unhurried, and though dreams often stir with sharp images or swift movements, his remained peaceful, touched by the soothing presence of the God who covered him. Even the memories that had once carried weight seemed softened, wrapped in the hush of divine tenderness, and the hopes that flickered in his heart glowed with the gentle warmth of assurance. Everything within him floating in a sea of stillness that only God can give. Perhaps your thoughts are beginning to move in that same softened way, slower, quieter, drifting rather than circling, becoming vague shapes that no longer demand attention, no longer press against your mind, as though God himself is touching each one with quiet light, easing the intensity, cooling the restless edges, allowing your heart to slide further into peace. The earth beneath David warmed beneath his resting body, cradling him with a natural tenderness. The soil steady and unmoving, the grass soft and cushioning, and the longer he rested, the more the ground seemed to mold gently to his shape, supporting him without effort. Just as God supports the weight of every burden we carry, even when we are too weary to notice. And perhaps the surface beneath you now, your bed, your pillow, your blankets, are becoming a quiet reminder of that support, the way they hold you, comfort you, settle around you, inviting you to let your body grow heavier. The night around David grew so quiet that it seemed to cocoon him, sealing him in a soft, protective chamber where nothing unkind could enter, where even the smallest uncertainty dissolved into nothing. And you too are entering that gentle cocoon now, enveloped in peace, covered in a stillness that comes only from the one who knows you fully and loves you deeply. So let your breath fall into an even slower pattern. Let your eyelids grow heavier. Let the softness of this moment cradle you, for God is near, nearer than the quiet, nearer than the breeze, nearer than the pulse beneath your skin. And as you rest in his presence, sleep will come gently, naturally, beautifully.
The night flowed onward in its slow, sacred rhythm, a hush so deep and tender that even the earth beneath David seemed to breathe in soft harmony with him, each quiet moment unfolding like a gentle wave washing over the hillside, smoothing, calming, embracing everything it touched. And in that holy darkness, David's spirit floated deeper still, carried by the peaceful nearness of the God who held him, the God who held every star in its place, every breath in his lungs, every beat of his resting heart. The sky above shimmered like a vast canopy of tiny lanterns, each star casting a faint glow over the sleeping shepherd. And though David did not see them, his soul seemed to sense their steady presence. Those little lights hung by the Creator's hand, shining in silent testimony to his unfailing watchfulness. For the God who placed every star also watched every moment of David's rest, and that truth wrapped itself around him in ways beyond words, giving his dreams a soft ease, giving his body a quiet surrender, giving his heart a peace that nestled deep, deeper than thought, deeper than memory. The sheep around him lay still, their small bodies curled into gentle mounds of warmth. Occasionally one would shift, releasing a faint sigh before settling again. Yet even their movements felt peaceful, unhurried, serene. They trusted without reasoning, rested without fear, slept without question, simply because their shepherd was near. And unknowingly, they mirrored the way God longs for every heart to rest in him, not with understanding, not with certainty about tomorrow, but with innocence, with softness, with trust. And as David lay sleeping, wrapped in the quiet breath of the hills, the presence of God
hovered tenderly over him, a presence that asked nothing of him, placed no demands, required no effort, only offered comfort, poured peace, breathed love. And perhaps you can feel something of that presence now, settling into your chest like warm light, quieting your thoughts, loosening the last traces of tension, reminding you gently, tenderly, that you are not alone in this moment, that God is leaning close to you just as he leaned close to David, watching over you with the same unbroken devotion. A soft wind traveled across the field, drifting over the grass in slow, soothing strokes. It brushed against David's skin with delicate coolness, as if God himself were refreshing his breaths, guiding his body into deeper rest. And the wind carried faint scents of earth and night and living things, scents that grounded him in the peacefulness of the moment. And as it passed over the hillside, it wove together a quiet melody, a natural lullaby sung by creation, steady, calming, tender, the kind of sound that settles into the heart and invites it to loosen, to soften, to rest. Perhaps in your own way, you sense that same gentle song, the soft hum of stillness around you, the slow rhythm of your breath, the delicate warmth settling through your limbs, each sensation whispering that it is safe to let go now, safe to drift, safe to surrender everything you've held today. For God is close, gathering you into his peace the way he gathered David into quiet sleep. David's dreams deepened with each passing moment, slow currents of memory and hope drifting together in a calm that felt almost sacred. No sharp images, no hurried movements, no heavy echoes, only soft impression, gentle warmth, quiet reassurance. And even in those dreams, God's presence moved like a warm tide, smoothing every worry, easing every shadow, turning every thought into something peaceful and harmless. And perhaps your mind is beginning to move in that same quiet rhythm, thoughts fading into soft shapes, memories drifting like feathers through a slow, dim light, nothing pulling, nothing demanding, each moment drawing you further into the soothing quiet that God is forming gently around you. The earth beneath David held him without shifting, firm enough to support him, soft enough to cradle him. And in that perfect balance, his body relaxed fully, his muscles releasing, his breath deepening, his limbs growing heavier, as if the ground had been shaped for the sole purpose of giving him rest. And the longer he slept, the more deeply he seemed to sink into that natural embrace, letting go, trusting the support beneath him, trusting the God who surrounded him completely. And you are just as safe now, safe in God's nearness, safe in his watchfulness, safe in his unchanging, unending love, a love that wraps itself around you as you drift deeper into rest, a love that shields you from every fear, a love that whispers softly to your spirit, "Rest now, beloved. I am here. I am holding you." So breathe a little slower. Let your thoughts dim into gentle quiet. Let the softness of this moment gather around you, for sleep is coming. Slow, warm, peaceful, guided by the same tender God who watched over David beneath those ancient, starlit skies.
The night around David softened even further, becoming almost weightless, as though the darkness itself had grown warm and tender under the watchful gaze of the Lord, and every passing moment seemed to deepen the hush that cradled the hillside, a hush filled with quiet mercy, with gentle protection, with a love so steady it felt like the very air was breathing peace into David's resting body. And as he slept, His soul drifted deeper into that divine quiet, carried by the arms of the God who held him long before he ever knew how to speak his name. The sky stretched wide and endless above him, a canvas of soft darkness dotted with the gentle shimmer of distant stars, each one placed with intention, each one burning with ancient light that had traveled through ages just to glimmer over this peaceful moment. And though David's eyes were closed, his spirit seemed to feel the quiet faithfulness woven into that shining expanse, a reminder that God's promises were just as constant, just as steady, just as unchanging as the stars that watched his slumber. And in that truth, David rested even more deeply, his breathing slow and even, his body sinking into the warmth of the earth beneath him. A faint breeze began to stir, moving softly across the field as though guided by an invisible hand. It brushed over David's cheek with a cool tenderness, carrying with it the scents of grass and open sky. And the movement of the wind seemed to whisper, to hum, to sing in a language older than words, a gentle lullaby written by the Creator, carried through the night to soothe the hearts of all who rested under his watch. And that quiet, heavenly song wove itself around David, settling him into an even deeper level of peace, a peace that touched not only his body, but the quiet chambers of his soul. The sheep remained still, curled in their small circles of warmth, their breathing soft, unbroken, rhythmic, none of them aware of how completely they were being guarded, none of them sensing the dangers that had once lurked beyond the shadows, none of them feeling the strain of vigilance that David carried on their behalf. They simply rested, untroubled, unafraid, trusting without thought, sleeping without fear, because they knew their shepherd was near, and even more profoundly, because God watched over them through the shepherd he had chosen. And perhaps in this moment, your soul is beginning to sense that same quiet safety, the kind of safety that does not depend on understanding, the kind of safety that does not require effort, the kind of safety that feels like a soft whisper over your spirit, telling you that you can finally exhale, finally loosen your grip, finally allow yourself to rest in the hands of the one who loves you with unending tenderness. In the depths of his dreams, David wandered through fields filled with soft light, fields where shadows did not frighten him, where danger could not touch him, where every step carried a sense of gentle assurance. And even though dreams are often fragile things, shifting like mist in the mind, his were held securely within the presence of God, so that nothing within them could trouble him. Nothing could steal the peace that wrapped around his heart. Nothing could disturb the divine quiet that filled his spirit with warmth. Perhaps your own mind is slipping into that same softened state now, the edges of your thoughts rounding, the noise of the day melting into dim echoes that no longer demand your attention, your imagination drifting slowly, gently, like a boat floating on calm water, rising and falling with the soft rhythm of your breath, carrying you toward a deeper and deeper rest. The earth beneath David warmed with the shape of his resting body, forming a cradle perfectly suited to support him. The soil soft, the grass tender, the ground beneath him steady as the faithfulness of God. And the longer he slept, the more deeply he seemed to settle into that natural embrace, his limbs growing heavier, his muscles unwinding, his heartbeat slowing into a calm and steady pattern. And perhaps your own body is feeling that same beautiful sinking, the way your mattress seems to soften beneath you, the way your blankets warm and conform to your shape, the way your limbs grow pleasantly heavy, the way your chest rises and falls with effortless ease,
each small sensation drawing you deeper into the quiet that God is offering you, inviting you into the healing rest He prepared long before this night began. So allow yourself to sink now. To sink gently. To sink fully into the soft cradle of God's presence. Let your breathing slow. Let your eyelids grow heavier. Let the quiet around you wrap itself around your soul. For God is near. God is holding you with the same tenderness that held David beneath the ancient sky, and sleep is drawing close, warm, peaceful, gentle, like a blessing whispered over you by the one who loves you beyond measure.
The night continued in its slow, tender unfolding, stretching across the ancient hills like a soft, endless sigh from the heart of God. And every moment that passed seemed to deepen the peace that surrounded David, a peace that wrapped itself around him like warm light, settling into the very marrow of his bones, calming him, holding him, quieting every corner of his spirit until nothing remained but rest. Gentle, sacred, blessed rest. The stars above him glowed with a steady softness, shimmering like tiny wells of light poured into the dark sky, not harsh or bright, but warm, patient, comforting. Each one a silent reminder that even in the deepest night, God's presence continues to shine. And though David slept with eyes fully closed, his soul seemed to drink in that starlight as though it were nourishment, as though each faint glow whispered to him of God's faithfulness, whispering that darkness is never the end, that light always remains, that even in the stillest silence, the heart of heaven beats close. The breeze returned again, drifting over the hillside in slow, gentle waves, its movement unhurried, its coolness soothing. And as it passed through the grass, it created a faint, whispering sound, like a soft hymn sung by creation itself, a lullaby woven by the Lord, carried through the quiet night to cradle the shepherd boy he loved. And the wind touched David's hair, brushed his forehead, cooled his cheeks, every movement full of tenderness, every breath full of calm, and his spirit sank deeper still into rest, sinking the way a feather settles upon still water, lightly, peacefully, effortlessly. Perhaps you can feel something of that same gentle movement now, the way the quiet seems to stroke the edges of your thoughts, cooling them, quieting them, easing them into soft shapes that no longer press upon your mind. The way the peace around you feels like a slow breeze drifting through your chest, calming your breath, loosening the space behind your ribs. Perhaps you feel your body sinking a little more into comfort, sinking as David sank into the warmth of the earth beneath him, a warmth that wrapped him in safety, a warmth that whispered without words, "You can let go. You can rest now. You are held." The sheep around David continued their peaceful slumber, their woolly bodies curled into small islands of warmth scattered across the hillside. And when the breeze touched them, they only sighed softly, shifting slightly before falling even deeper into their gentle sleep. They had no understanding of their safety, no awareness of the shepherd who kept watch, no knowledge of the dangers that lingered beyond the edges of the night. They simply trusted, instinctively, completely, quietly. And their trust became a reflection of the rest that God longs to give to every weary soul, a rest that does not depend on knowing, but on being known, a rest that comes not from controlling, but from being covered by a love greater than fear. And David,
resting beneath the watchful eye of heaven, seemed to breathe in that truth even in his dreams. For his dreams drifted like soft clouds across a peaceful sky, light and gentle, filled with warmth rather than worry, not sharp or vivid, but muted and serene, as if God had softened every memory, every echo of the day, every whisper of thought, shaping them into images of calm that carried him deeper into that sweet, unbroken sleep. His mind wandered through fields washed in soft light, through valleys where the grass swayed slowly, through streams whose gentle murmuring matched the rhythm of his breathing. Nothing hurried, nothing startling, nothing heavy. A world woven from God's quiet nearness. And as he drifted through those dreamlike landscapes, his soul rested in the assurance that no danger could follow him here, no fear could break through, no shadow could swallow the peace that held him. For even in dreams, God was with him, guiding him, guarding him, comforting him. And the night around you too is becoming a sanctuary, the quiet around you deepening, the air warming, the darkness softening into something safe, something blessed, something holy. For God is near, and where he is, fear has no voice. Where he is, rest flows freely. Where he is, the soul finds its peace. So let yourself drift now, deeper into stillness, deeper into comfort, deeper into the warm center of God's presence. Let your breath fall into the slow rhythm that comes when you finally feel safe. Let every muscle in your body relax. Let your thoughts dim into gentle shadows. Let your spirit rest in the truth that you are held by the same loving God who watched over David beneath the ancient stars. For he is here, watching, guarding, loving. And sleep is drawing nearer to you like a warm tide, soft, peaceful, beautiful, ready to carry you inward into the deep rest your soul has been longing for. The night lingered in its deep and tender quiet, stretching softly across the hills as though time itself had slowed to honor the peace God had poured over David. And every breath he took seemed to deepen that holy stillness, his chest rising and falling in a calm so steady it felt woven from the very heart of heaven. And around him, the world remained wrapped in a blanket of warmth and silence, untouched by fear, untouched by hurry, untouched by anything except the love of the God who watched over him. The stars above continued their gentle shimmering, each one holding its place with quiet devotion. And though David's eyes remained closed, his spirit rested beneath their glow, as if every soft flicker of light whispered to him of God's unbroken promises, promises that did not fade when he slept, promises that did not dim when the world grew dark, promises that held him even more tenderly in the stillness of night than in the brightness of day. And his soul absorbed that truth the way dry earth absorbs dew, slowly, deeply, quietly. A soft rustle of wind drifted once more across the hillside, carrying with it the faint, sweet scent of the night. Cool, gentle, soothing. And as it brushed over David's resting form, it seemed to whisper peace into his dreams, whispering comfort through the air, whispering warmth into his heart. And the breeze moved around the sheep as well, ruffling their wool with delicate touches, guiding them deeper into their simple, instinctive rest. And all of creation seemed to sway in the same slow rhythm, breathing with the same calm, humming with the same quiet peace. And perhaps you can feel something of that breeze within your own soul now, a gentle stir of God's presence moving through your inner world, softening the corners of your thoughts, cooling the places that have felt strained, warming the spaces that have felt lonely, settling over you like a tender touch that requires nothing but your willingness to receive it. And as you receive it, your heart loosens, your body softens, your breathing deepens, drawing you into the same divine rest that held David so sweetly. David's dreams drifted deeper, becoming slower, gentler, filled with images softened by the presence of God. Fields where the grass swayed in slow waves, streams glimmering under soft light, paths that led nowhere except into peace. And he moved through these dreamlike places without fear, without hesitation, each step guided by an unseen comfort, each moment touched by the quiet assurance that he was safe, utterly safe, completely held. Perhaps your mind is beginning to wander into similar softness, drifting into half-formed images that feel calm rather than sharp, colors that feel warm rather than bright, sensations that feel comforting rather than loud. And as your thoughts soften into that gentle haze, you feel the nearness of rest drawing closer, a rest that doesn't need to be chased, a rest that comes like a warm tide, slow and sure, rising within you. The earth beneath David remained warm and steady, forming a perfect cradle for his sleeping body, supporting him without shifting, cupping him with a tenderness that seemed shaped by God himself. And every minute that passed drew him deeper into that embrace, deeper into the quiet, heavy peace that comes only when the soul has finally found a place where it feels safe enough to fully let go. And David let go, without fear, without thought, without effort. Perhaps you can feel that same letting go beginning now, your muscles releasing their final tension, your shoulders sinking slightly deeper, your limbs growing heavier, warmer, slower, your breath moving in and out with a quiet that feels almost sacred, as though God himself is guiding each inhale, each exhale, inviting you to drift, to settle, to rest. And all throughout the night, God remained with David, close enough to touch, close enough to hear every faint movement of his heart, close enough to guard every moment of his slumber. And God is with you in that same closeness now, watching over you with a love that does not waver, protecting your rest with a tenderness that never grows tired, surrounding you with a peace that sinks deeper than your thoughts, deeper than your breath, deeper than your sleep. So allow the quiet to grow around you now. Let it wrap around your heart like warm light. Let it settle over your mind like soft, gentle wings. Let your spirit fall into the slow, peaceful rhythm of this night. For God is here. He is holding you. And sleep is drawing nearer, ready to cradle you just as tenderly as he cradled David beneath the ancient sky.